right
than ever before. And so many people, I always say, somebody is praying for exactly what you have to share, Matthew. Like literally praying for a breakthrough. They're in the golden handcuffs and they're in real estate. They want to do something. Their boss or owner is making 7.2 million. And they're like, what's Matthew doing? So your message equals your $1 million anthem. You don't have a sales problem. You have a message problem. If your words don't captivate, they don't convert. I have helped Grammy-winning artists craft unforgettable songs. And now we help entrepreneurs just like you craft your business messaging that actually sells.
You don't need more hustle. You need the right strategy. I help scale multi-million-dollar companies, and we can show you exactly how to systemize, scale, and dominate the market without drowning in the grind. Welcome to the Conquer Club podcast. How do you go from hundreds of soul-crushing sales calls to closing $300,000 in just one day? Our guest, Matthew White, did it. And today, he's sharing exactly how.
Welcome to the Conquer Club podcast, the show for high-impact entrepreneurs looking for hope, breakthrough ideas, and real stories that move you forward. I'm Tonya, here with my hot hubby, and we are so glad you have joined us today. We are with Matthew White, like Kevin said, creator of the 100K day virtual event system. Get ready for a masterclass in freedom-based selling. Welcome, Matthew.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to get into this.
Well, we're excited to have you. And we always say this to our people or our guests who have these incredible accents that we just want to be quiet so we can hear you talk.
So from my perspective, I don't know, I have an accent.
I know somebody said that to us. Well, you have accents. I said, wait, we do?
But thank you for coming.
Well, I tell you what, let's jump right into this. I know our listeners are going to be excited to hear about your story and how to go about doing what you have conquered. So, Matthew, take us back to the moment you realized selling one-to-one was burning you out. What was your mindset before you made that game-changing pivot?
Yeah, a few years, about maybe 12 years ago, I started a business in real estate coaching. And I had discovered a little hack in real estate that I kind of stumbled across through some stuff that I went through. This coaching, like I started this business with the context of I wanted to free myself from a job. And I had no idea. I was very limited with my skills when I went into this business. I didn't know how to sell. I didn't know how to I barely knew how to turn on a computer because I'd come from a construction background. And in construction, they don't really, they don't teach you, you don't use a computer in the industry that I was in construction. And so I went into this business. I discovered a kind of a gray area in real estate, and I started to capitalize on that. Now, because of what I had done, I found people started hearing about what I was doing. I was able to save them a lot of money on their real estate. I was able to help them get their real estate from being negative, costing more money than what it was making them, to making positive cash flow through this little loophole that I discovered. And the word started getting around. What I realized pretty quickly is that I had something that I could monetize or I could make money from. I didn't know really what that meant, but I just knew that I had something that other people wanted. And what happened was this promoter heard about me and asked me to speak at one of his events, me and my partner, Sahara. And they were spending a lot of money on events all around the country. And I was so afraid to go and speak in front of people. Like I can imagine coming from construction and now there would be 200, 300 people at these events. And I would be like, man, I'm not the guy. I'm not the guy to speak in front of people. And that was so intimidating. Fortunately, my partner was very supportive, and she helped me through this, and we built a kind of a presentation. It wasn't anything spectacular, but it was something that we could talk from. And we got onto the stage, and literally wasn't even doing much. We didn't pitch or anything. We just talked. People were asking us questions, and we were giving them feedback. And what was super interesting from this experience was that after the event, people were queuing up, coming to speak to us about this thing that we were doing. So straight away, we knew we had this amazing little thing that we could capitalize on. And so we started touring with this guy, speaking on stage and doing quite well from this process. But what had happened was we started making more money than the promoter from his events. And what was interesting is that he started getting a little bit greedy and wanted more of that pie. And the expectation around the initial whole thing was very wrong. And so we kind of fell out, right? It happens in business. Sometimes you just don't get along with people, or sometimes things change. And so I was able to rest on these events for a fair, maybe about a year. But then that rug got pulled out from under me. And so we had an offer that was working. We had people that wanted this offer, but now all of a sudden I had no way to get out in front of people and had to figure this thing out myself. And from not knowing how to turn on a computer to putting a website together is a long stretch, right? It's a big journey.
Right.
And I had to force myself to do the thing, to learn, right? And I started investing in myself. I got a mentor that said, if you want to make a business happen, you've got to go and invest in yourself. Learn, get education, get skills, look at the people around you that you can utilize to build off of that. So I did that. And what happened is we built a website. We started putting advertising up, and the learning from a website to having successful advertising is another huge leap in knowledge and understanding. And so I've been through a lot of battle, hard knocks, figuring this stuff out, but I've been very persistent. So I built a funnel, built a website, had an offer, started getting ads into it, and all of a sudden I found myself in this place where I was doing a lot of sales calls. At first it was okay because I was enjoying it. Right? Speaking one-to-one to people in the beginning was great because I was learning, I was experiencing. But then a funny thing happens when you do well with advertising. You reach a place where it plateaus, but then there's a point of scale. And when your business starts growing faster than what you can keep up, that's when it starts burning you.
Yeah.
Because you haven't built systems around that.
Yeah.
And that's what happened to me. I started getting to a place where we're getting 20, 30 calls in a week, and I was handling them.
Wow.
Then that was just burning me. Like I was so worn out. I was feeling the pain, but I couldn't stop because I'd created this momentum. Yeah. And that momentum, I couldn't give up on it because I had staff, I had people around me, I had clients that were relying on me. And so I got myself caught up into this burnout trap. I decided then to get a sales team to help me. And this is when things really started getting crazy. Because a sales team is expensive. Yeah. They're very expensive, and they're tricky to manage if you don't have the skill set to hire the right people, or if they're not following the scripts or the processes, right? Their KPIs and all this kind of stuff to manage. That sales team becomes very expensive on commissions, the tools that they use, and then your time in making sure they're reaching their KPIs, because if they're not reaching KPIs, there's no point in having them. Yeah. So I spent a good 6 months going down the sales team. I've got a sales manager. I've got all of these things in place, but that just left me totally more worn out than I was doing my own sales calls. So I got rid of them. I sacked my sales team, and everyone was telling me I'm nuts. Like, what the hell are you doing? And I was nuts because it literally meant I had to go back on the calls, wearing all the hats, trying to do the thing. And one morning I was like, and I can't keep doing this. This is just going to kill me if I keep going down this path.
Mm-hmm.
As much as what I want to, I can't serve clients and sell and do all these things. And if I get a sales team, they're going to run me broke or something like this. And so I was sitting on my desk thinking, well, what am I going to do? And I'd heard this thing about selling one to many. Like I've heard this thing around for a long time, for years and years and years. I started to dive into this and figure out what does that even look like? So I ran this little experiment that, now bear in mind, by this time we'd made about $22 million, $20 million in sales from our process. So we've been doing really well, but I was burnt out and I didn't want to go forward doing this anymore. So I decided to run this experiment and I thought I would replicate what was happening prior when I was speaking on stage for trying to do it for myself, except I didn't want to spend $100,000 on ads to do that.
Right.
I had a budget of $1,000. That's how much I wanted to spend. I said, I'm going to test $1,000 and see if I can put an event together and see what that would look like. And so what was so crazy about this little experiment was I didn't expect it to go as well as what it did. And so I ran this ads campaign, and 27 people rocked up into this little event, which I had hired this little restaurant place.
So it was live. If I can interject, it was not a virtual, it was a live event.
In person, yeah.
Okay.
Nice little setting on the beach. Bear in mind with where I'm located, like a lot of people are into real estate a lot. So through this event, 27 people rocked up, and literally I didn't even prepare or plan for this. All I did was people asked me questions about the thing that I was doing, and I just answered questions, and I got this engagement, and it was being funny and all this stuff. Well, what happened from at that event is we closed $300,000 in sales.
Not one day.
27 people in one event and closed these people, not straight away, but over the next week we followed up and got these sales. That moment changed everything for me.
Yeah. And what year was that, Matthew?
About 2 years ago now, a year and a half ago, 2 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So it took a minute to get to the place of when you began from construction to this point, and then you're like, whoa, you have this revelation that you could do one to many, which is what the high level mastermind groups that we're in together is focused on, one to many. So you had a 300K day. You hear this, people talk about this hype. They actually had a 300K day.
Yeah.
You know, what does that mean? Can you break down? So you just broke that event down, and you talk about, I think they're called red diamond offers.
That's correct.
Okay. Can you explain to the listeners, what does that mean? Because our listeners want to know, what's this dude talking about? How can he have a 300K day? And, it takes a lot of equity for a home to get to that place, or, in real estate. So explain what a red diamond offer is, and how do you know you have one worth 15K or more? Tell the people in these nets about that.
Wow. Okay. So going back a few years, I discovered a process of creating an offer, and the offer was $15,000. Now, this was back in the early days before I even knew about stuff called offers and what it clearly means now. But I had what it meant for me was I packaged a few little pieces together and charged a price. Over the years, I've developed and evolved, and what I've learned is that I created what I call a red diamond offer. And what that is a conveyor belt offer. And I'll explain what I mean by that. So a conveyor belt offer is, in real estate, we learned that in the beginning, we could just do certification and help people in our market, and we just provided the certification. It was $15,000. over time we evolved. We learned that our avatar, or the people that we worked with, our client base, wanted more stuff. Like, they didn't want us just to do the piece, they wanted more things. We realized that we could do more things. So, for instance, they needed finance. And instead of them going to look for their own finance brokers, we partnered with finance brokers and then put that in our puzzle.
Yeah.
Then they wanted things like finding land or finding real estate or finding property. So instead of them going do it, we found partners that we could work with and put them in this piece of the puzzle. Mm-hmm. And there was builders, renovators, all the way right until the end, where they could have their property managed and looked after. So this entire conveyor belt costs anywhere between $100,000 to $250,000, depending on where they're at. Mm-hmm. So we've created this conveyor belt offer, and this is what I talk to people about on my avatar, and that's what we sell to. And so in this event, we literally sold 3 of those offers. And so it was 100, 120, 150K offers. One person spent 200K in that offer. So, wow. And when I say 100K offer, because that's a baseline, but there's more stuff that comes into it, then they might want extra stuff, might want extra renovations, all that kind of things.
Right.
And so that 300K was actually way more. But I say 300K because that was the baseline of what we sold in that event. So
wow.
So yeah, sorry to clarify that.
That's okay. That's okay. So that's what the conveyor belt is the red, what I say, the red diamond?
The diamond offer, yeah.
So it totally makes sense, because I know we talked a little bit before we started, but it's what the market needs, the gaps in the market.
Right.
So they don't have to look everywhere to figure it out and find it. You have it in a one-stop shop, baby.
Exactly. And what made that really unique is that we don't do any of the work.
Exactly.
We just manage the work. And that in itself now means that business literally runs by itself by my superstar virtual assistant that does everything from beginning to the end. And I don't really have to be involved besides making core decisions on that specific offer.
That's amazing. Can we put
is it safe to say? Yes. Is it safe to say it comes wrapped up in a package with a red bow on it? Does it say? Can we do that? Red diamond offer with a red bow. I'm telling you.
How we package.
Well, I tell you what, you've got my attention. I'm sure you have our listeners' attention as well. So, for entrepreneurs listening who feel trapped in the endless sales cycle, you mentioned it early on, you were just exhausted. What's the first mindset shift they need to make in order to make this leap into one-to-many?
I found for me, selling one-to-one was an easy, it's a psychological thing where you think that's the best way to do selling. Because I didn't know that at the beginning. When you get to a point when you've done so many one-to-one sales calls, the mindset shift for me was the numbers, right? If I balance out the numbers and weigh up the amount of time and energy it was costing me to sell one-to-one and then run a team and pay out commissions versus the amount of money I spend on an event and the turnover I get on the event, the numbers just speak for themselves. And so the mindset shift for me isn't so much psychological, other than knowing that there's a mathematical equation here, and I'd be pretty stupid not to follow the numbers, right? Because I'm a numbers guy. Yeah. And that's what's really driven me into this. Besides the psychological stuff, when you're spending time on a call and you're with a client for 30 minutes, hour, and then they don't close, you then got to follow up with them and keep that momentum going. And so that perpetuates. It's not just being on that call, it's in the follow-ups. It's a consistent turning around people. So it wore me down so much that I was almost crying underneath my desk. Like, it was so frustrating.
Yeah.
And the mindset shift, once I had that epiphany, like, I can spend this amount of money and sell to many people in one room at one time, and they're prepared to buy from me. Like if I took 27 people through phone call process, it would take me 6 months at least, where I did that all in 2 hours.
That's amazing. I mean, I think so many people, especially in this online world, can relate to that. Because you think, oh, I have these leads and they come in and now I'm going to make sales and this cycle. And like you said, you were wanting to cry, and the stress that comes with that. And, I always say, is the squeeze worth the juice? Is it worth it? Because how much time then did you had to take away from your family and from other activities and just life in general? How much better that this revelation is. And in actuality, it's better for the people you're also serving, right? Because you can serve them at a higher level. What do you say is your commitment? I know you say commitment is everything, Matthew. How did your commitment show up when you started selling this way? How was it different?
Selling one to many or selling at all?
Selling one to many. So how was that? So how is it different in your commitment in that as it compared to what it used to be?
I wish I had started doing this right in the beginning. It would have saved me a lot of pain and headache and frustration. I would recommend everyone work on that. However, selling one to groups is a skill and a nuance you need to master. It doesn't just happen naturally. You have to constantly be fixing up things and iterating.
Yeah.
I'm naturally a committed person. When I put my finger on something as an entrepreneur, I've learned from years of being battle tested against chasing shiny objects that you have to put your finger on the thing and just keep pushing forward. And so I built a mindset around that. The learning curve for doing one to many has been an interesting one, but I see a lot of people trying to do this and then they give up on the first or second try because they're not prepared to put in that effort. And then what they're left with? Okay, go back and sell one to one.
Yeah.
So that's fine. You can do that, and it is a sustainable. It's a business that can do things. But when you want to, our mentor says, go pro. You want to go pro. Going pro means doing that thing, selling one to groups.
Yeah.
So my commitment to this is I'm on fire thinking about it and doing it. Like here's the thing, right? When you're in an event and you just know the energy is good, right? You can just feel the people and you can see the heads nodding, the heads going, yes. And you just know you're going to have people coming on the other side on the calls and you're going to sell stuff. It is such a beautiful feeling when you get that just right. And you just know that like you go into a process where you do your call and you do your close and people are just responding so well. Like it's such good energy and all that. If you think about how much time I would spend to do that one-on-one talking to all those people, it's just crazy. But I love that experience. I love that energy of the people when they're just engaged and they're connected with you and you can see their heads going like this and you're just like, the stories you're telling are connecting. I love that part of it.
It's so good. That's so good. I love that you have, you model the commitment and that you don't have to go back to old ways. And it's like you said, the energy in a room when you know they're connecting and really you are serving them into a new identity shift, really.
People I found in life and in business that most of us or most entrepreneurs get in their own way. Yeah. And so hanging out with other people or people that in a group setting or an environment breaks those limiting beliefs a lot easier. And so you see other people doing the thing, you're like, I can do this because other people are doing it, right?
Right.
That is
it's great so true.
Advice.
Or if he can do it, I can do it, sort of thing.
That's right.
Yeah. No, it's so good.
Gives you that encouragement. Well, Matthew, let's take a little deeper into your Conquer story. What would you say was the toughest part of your journey, and how did that experience push you into your purpose?
Oh, the toughest part of my journey is definitely when I gave up my job. I'll dive into that. So I left school when I was 16 years old, and I was literally kicked out of home at the same time. My parents threw me out into the world to go defend for myself. And don't get me wrong, I love my parents, but I was a naughty kid. And so they gave me my way, and I had to go and fend for myself. And at a young age, I found myself with no education, no real way around the world. I found construction to be a place that I could fall into. Now, I started in construction, sweeping floors. It was the only thing I could really find at the time, but it paid money, it paid the bills. And I found in that very quickly, because of my determination to work hard, I built up a very solid career in construction, to the point in only about, I believe it was 6 years, I was running $100 million projects because I was so committed to learning and putting my hand up and working my butt off when everyone else wouldn't. It's gave me an edge. I don't know where that comes from, but it just happened, and I grew to this point. But then I got into construction at the higher levels, and I'm sure most people that are running businesses or that are running in the corporate space know that at the top the pressure is intense. The necessity to deliver constantly is a tiresome pressure. In construction, it's testosterone fueled, and it's a lot of aggression and a lot of arguments and a lot of people fighting with each other, trying to get that energy and momentum going. And it's something I didn't want to do anymore. But I wanted to leave this. I got to a point where I wanted to leave this energy where there's this argument, this tension, this pressure. Like the performance to deliver was relentless. And I had a boss that was a pain in the butt and a very angry person. And we constantly butted heads. He mentored me, but he just wasn't serving me in the best way because my soul was getting crushed in this environment. So the hardest part, going back to your question, was the moment of leaving, because I was in a place where I call the golden handcuffs, right? The golden handcuffs, because when I would do a job, people at the end of that job would pat me on the back and say, Matthew, well done. You did an amazing job. You finished on time. You did all this thing. Then there was the other thing of every time I did well, I would get bonuses. And this perpetual cycle was very, very frustrating because I did actually quit my job about 5 times. And every time I quit, I would be away for a week or two, and I'd get a phone call, and they would say, hey, Matthew, we've got this new project. I'm going to give you X amount of bonus if you do this, blah, blah, blah. And the money was so good, it kept me in this terrible cycle for way longer than what I wanted it to be, but that's what was happening. So I had to break these shackles somehow in order for me to save my sanity and to build my own future, right?
Yeah.
There was one moment I was on this project. It was sorry.
Oh, you're back.
It was a $82 million project that we were building, and I was coming in first to arrive, last to leave. Every single day, I was pushing this project, and near coming to the end of the project, I happened to speak to the developer. Like, he'd come on site this one day, and I was talking to him, and this was the last straw on the camel's back, as I would say. I was talking to him, and we were bantering, and he was telling me stuff, and then we started talking about numbers. And it turns out that when we finish this project, he's going to make $7.2 million of profit from this project that I built with my whole team, and I would have probably made maybe $250K max out of that project in bonuses, etc. That's a big difference in numbers, right? Yeah.
Sure.
I was like, I'm on the wrong side of this whole equation, and something has to change because I can't keep blood, sweat, and tears doing something and making other people rich. Yeah. I was over making other people rich. And so I had to make a decision, but it was super hard because I knew that if I stopped working for other people, I would no longer have an income. And how was I going to serve myself and my family if I wasn't bringing in the income? And I was afraid of that so much that it also was the barrier, right? It was so hard to make that shift.
Yeah.
One morning I was driving to work. I live in Melbourne. Melbourne gets really rainy sometimes. And I was in my car, and I remember this, anxiety was just building up inside of me. And I was holding my steering wheel in my car, and I was just squeezing it so hard, thinking, I didn't want to go to work this day, because I knew what I was going to face. I was just over it. And the music was playing, the rain was falling. I remember breathing, and there was this, the cold air coming out of my mouth. And I was like, I'm over this. I'm done. I have to figure out something to stop this. And that was a defining moment. That was a very big change moment, psychologically, mentally in me. Yeah. The traffic in front of me, all the red lights. If you be in the traffic and you just see all the brake lights in front of you, a sea of brake lights, and I was just like, this is not me anymore. I can't do this. So I made a decision to make a change. And the only way I was going to break free from this was to burn my bridges, because the people that I was working for had this very interesting knack to draw me back in.
Yeah.
And so I had to figure out what I was going to do to break these shackles. And I wasn't very smart at that time, and so I came up with a very rough idea, and that was that I'd given notice again, and this time I'd arranged for a farewell kind of get-together with all the directors and the people in the company that I was involved with, and I got very drunk. Now, I don't drink alcohol anymore, but I got absolutely rat-faced and amongst all of this group where it gave me the courage or insight or whatever to just abuse everybody. Like, I was so frustrated, so angry, so annoyed at myself, and I released that out on everybody else. And in that, literally burnt my bridges. I can't tell you exactly the stuff that I said, but it wasn't good. And it left me in a place where I had put my back against the wall. And that was a big moment for me. So
you kind of sabotaged yourself so that you wouldn't go back to the golden handcuffs. I mean, we know people that way, and I think a lot of people can really relate to that story, because you're helping somebody else's dream come true. They keep the cheese on the cracker for you to keep coming back. Right. And the next thing you know, your kids have grown up, they've graduated, and it's like, oh gosh, what did I just do? So I love that story. Thank you for sharing that. That's incredible that you took that risk, because that's not easy. And you just knew you couldn't do the same thing that you'd always done. And because what's going to change when you do that? So a lot of our listeners are faith-driven entrepreneurs. Do you think it takes a certain kind of faith to thrive in business, to keep going? What has sustained you through hard seasons, Matthew?
Oh, totally. Yes, God has definitely been in my life through all of this and helped me through a lot of trials and tribulations. One of the things about the decision to break my golden handcuffs was so that I could be in an environment that was cleaner, as well, for my soul and for my sanity. But I put myself against the wall, right, back against the wall. Sometimes people say that, or they use that flippantly. Yeah. But I did it in such a way that I couldn't. There was no other way for me to do but go forward. And in my journey, I've made a lot of, as most entrepreneurs do, we make mistakes, we do things and go around in circles oftentimes. But one thing is, my faith has kept me stable and steady around my family, because when things go wrong in business, it can be tough, right? When you've got to rely on your income, you've got to rely, everybody around you is relying on you, your staff, your partners, your kids, their education, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And so that journey has been a struggle, but my faith has kept me moving forward. And I can truly say that that's been the one thing that's kept me sane is knowing that God's on my case watching me.
Yeah, I love that. Our listeners love that too. I think, a lot of times we keep that so separate from, it's like it's my faith is over here and my business is over here. And we have found that the market is really melting it all together. And so
Yeah.
we love to ask that question because truly a lot of our listeners are faith driven or just want to know like how they do that and what kept them going because they're miserable. A lot of times we'll say you can have a full bank account, but a very empty life account. And so there's a beautiful way to melt those two worlds together where it's an abundance in many ways. We say riches beyond revenue. And that's all of those other parts that you just shared, Matthew. Thank you for sharing that. What a great story.
That is a great story. You may have just answered it, but I do want to know for entrepreneurs that are nervous about moving from one to one to one to many, what's the simplest first step they can make today to make that or take that leap of faith?
That is a very good question. What is the big leap to go from one to one to one to many? And there's a few variables in this, and I'm going to try and keep it synced on what I think. But if you have something that's already converting, that you've sold, if you've been on the phone and you've been selling stuff, and you got good numbers on it, it's a no-brainer because you're just taking that and you're shifting the curve. If you've never sold something before, you're going into a new market, or you're still in that phase of kind of growth and learning, speaking on the phone to people, there is nothing better because you're getting personal growth and you're learning from your avatar, which is one of the biggest things that I did by speaking on the phone. I got so crystal clear with my messaging. I got so crystal clear with who I was serving. I got so crystal clear who I wasn't serving, which is also another part of it. And then taking that and selling one to many. Well, now it's just easy because I'm just doing the same thing, but I'm doing it at a scale of selling to multiple people. Now, my perspective, if you've got the ability to start selling one to many straight off the bat, like if you're coming into a new thing and you can do both, you can crystallize your message and your offer and sell one to many all in one package, the learning curve is going to be so much faster and your growth is going to be so much better if you can master the art of selling one to many.
Yes.
Excellent.
That is in the rooms that we have all been in. I'll say that is one of the keys that you learn to marinate in that, just bathe in it. So you understand how to do that because everybody gets burned out selling one-to-one.
Totally.
Everybody.
Yes.
I got friends that have successful businesses and they argue with me about having their sales team because they committed and they have their teams doing their thing. And I'm like, man, those teams are costing you so much money. Wait until I show you the numbers. And I show them the numbers and they're like, no, they still don't believe me.
They don't believe you.
Because they're committed, right? They have this thing done, and so they have to believe that what they're doing is always going to be the right thing. What do you call it? It's a bias, right? And so they're committed to that bias, but you have to experience it. And when you experience it, it changes everything.
Yes. And you said it beautifully when you said, once you got your messaging crystal clear, that we talked about that earlier, the messaging is so key and ... so is knowing how to sell it. So both of those work in tandem together to work. So correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you have generated over $24 million for clients. What is the biggest mistake that you see entrepreneurs make when trying to scale with live events?
Trying to scale with live events it comes down to message. message for me is like us. We spend lots of money on ads, and I get clients that come to me and they've got proven offers even, and when you dive into the nuts and bolts of it, so many times, just a couple of words, like it's so crazy to me. Like we do these tests in our ads, and I'll just change one or two words, and everything change. Like the conversions increase, right? And that's the biggest lesson: is you have to be crystal clear about who you're serving, who you're not serving, and how you're going to get them to that place. I learned that lesson many years ago.
Wow.
When we started growing in our business, I didn't realize at the time, I didn't know stuff about avatars and all this stuff. I had to learn about this stuff. But I learned that there was a thing called avatars. And what that is, it's the type of person that you're serving.
Yeah.
And after learning this, I realized that I had these 3 different avatars coming down my pipeline. One that just wanted to learn, one that owned property, and one that wanted to invest in property. And I had more money. And over time, I realized that these people that wanted to learn, even though they were nice people and they were in my kind of realm, I didn't want to serve them because I wanted my energy to be very focused.
Yeah.
And so I literally cut off that avatar and my marketing, my messaging, and the way we filter and things. And I sent them to another person that could help them. By doing that, that changed a lot for me because it gave me the ability to not use up more of my time that was not necessary, and I could focus on serving my best clients at the highest level. So I always say to my clients that work with us, if you want to scale or if you want to do business, you've got to be 100% clear on who you're serving, like crystal clear. And what's more important is who you're not serving. And then the messaging line up for that. That makes for great scaling. If you get that right, then everything kind of works well.
That's really good. Because what's the saying? If you're serving everybody, you're selling nothing, or something like that.
So true.
I mean, if you're serving everybody, then you're gonna sell nothing. You have to really pigeonhole that specific person. And like you said, you knew who just wanted to learn and who actually wanted to invest in themselves enough financially. If you invest in yourself, you're going to excel because you've invested in yourself. But it's the whole free people, as Myron said, free people who want free stuff are going to wear you down. But the people, the premium people, they're investing in it. They want to see ROI, and it's a beautiful thing. So in our comments here on YouTube, we want to hear from people. We want to hear what your biggest frustration is with sales. Maybe something that Matthew has shared with you resonated and you're finally ready to sell with more freedom. Share your thoughts in the comment, and don't forget to like and subscribe the Conquer Club the Conquer Club podcast for more stories like Matthew's. And then Kev, I know you want to ask him so all the people inside of these nets can learn more about Matthew's red diamond offers.
Red hot, red diamond, red bow. Yes, Matthew. Where can our audience connect with you and learn more about the 100K day system and your website? Where can they find you out there?
So it's very simple. Go.coachlaunch.com. Go.coachlaunch.com is where you'll find us when we're running our events. That's the main URL that we plug in all of our events to. So if you're wanting to come to our next event, you just come and pop in there. We run multiple different events over the year. Some are around events, some are around filling events, some are around offers. It all depends on where we are at that stage. But that's the key place to find us, and we're always running new events.
Okay, and Matthew, when you say that, just so the people know, these are virtual events. So wherever, correct me if I'm wrong, wherever you are in the nation, because we have a global audience, you can connect virtually, just like we are here, correct?
Correct. This is the thing I love, like we're connecting across the globe right now, and that's amazing. Technology has allowed the shift. We do virtual event selling. What's really good about that is the world has changed. And this is another thing I say, if you're still selling one-to-one, that's old school because we've got such amazing tech around us that brings so many people together. Why not bring groups together and sell to them in groups? Like, it's just silly to think that people are still on the phone trying to sell.
It's so true. It's so true because we can serve so many people quicker than ever before. And so many people, I always say, somebody is praying for exactly what you have to share, Matthew, like literally praying for a breakthrough. They're in the golden handcuffs and they're in real estate. They want to do something. Their boss or owner is making 7.2 million. And they're like, what's Matthew doing? So we'll have all of his information in the show notes so you can go there and go to these virtual events. Matthew has all the mistakes under his belt, so you don't have to make them. You can just come to his event and learn from his mistakes so you don't have to make them and take 12 years to get to one to many or whatever that is. He collapses your time for you. So all of that will be inside of the show notes. Matthew, thanks for joining us. It's morning for you and evening for us, but sharing your incredible journey. And listeners, again, all of these links and all the details will be in the show notes, and make sure you check them out and check out one of Matthew's events. I know it will bless you for sure.
Thank you so much. It's been an honor to be here.
So how many of you are ready to conquer your business, your income, and your life? Hit subscribe and join the Conquer Club, and let's start winning together.
Peace in.
Peace out.
Kevin and Tonya Stout.